Welcome to IAS project. In this video, we will be talking about Mature Harappan Culture. This is the first video for Mature Harappan Culture topic. Before we go into the lecture, let's look at an easy question. Consider the below statements regarding Harappan Civilization. The first statement is, Pre-Harappan culture is a Chalcolithic rural culture. The second statement is, Mature Harappan culture is a Bronze Age urban culture. And the third statement is, Late Harappan culture is a Chalcolithic rural culture. And the question is, which of the above statements are correct? If you know the answer to this question, please go ahead and answer it in the comment section below. We have divided Harappan civilization into three phases or three parts. The first part was pre-Harappan phase, and the second part is nothing but Mature Harappan phase. And Mature Harappan phase started around 2600 BCE. And it ended around 1900 BC. Some of you were asking me, why did I write the letter C here? This C stands for circa, which simply means about. So when you write your mains answer, if you don't want to write about 3200 BCE, you can simply write circa 3200 BCE, or you can simply put C and write it as C.3200 BCE. Now let's talk about Mature Harappan phase. So Mature Harappan phase is the second phase of Harappan civilization. Only Mature Harappan phase is a Bronze Age culture. Otherwise, both of these are actually Chalcolithic cultures. So before Mature Harappan culture as well as after the Mature Harappan culture, we have Chalcolithic cultures. Therefore, Late Harappan culture is basically a decline of Mature Harappan culture. So who developed Mature Harappan culture? Mature Harappan culture developed from the already existing pre-Harappan cultures within the Indus region. So people did not come from outside and develop Mature Harappan culture. Mature Harappan culture was developed by all the local people who were already existing in the pre-Harappan cultures. We have talked about pre-Harappan cultures in detail in our last video. If you have not watched that video, please click the link which you can see here. So we can say that Mature Harappan culture developed independent of any involvement of Mesopotamian civilization. These kind of statements can be directly asked in UPSC Prelims examination. Most of the times, we do not use the entire term Mature Harappan culture. We simply say Harappan culture. So please keep in mind that whenever we say simply Harappan culture, it refers to Mature Harappan culture. If we want to say pre-Harappan or late Harappan, we will particularly use the words pre and late. Mature Harappan culture or Harappan culture was basically the first urban civilization in the Indian subcontinent. Before the Mature Harappan culture, cities did not exist in the Indian subcontinent. If you are interested in what was the second urban civilization, then that would be the Mahajanapada period, which started around 600 BCE. So you can see here that after the fall of Mature Harappan culture, it took almost 1300 years for second urban civilization to come up in Indian subcontinent. So between 1900 BCE and 600 BCE, there were no cities in Indian subcontinent. If we talk about pre-Harappan phase, then it was basically a regionalization era. What do we mean by this? Regionalization era basically means that cultures developed within the individual regions. In our last video, we have seen that Nal Amri culture developed, and at some distance, Kot Diji culture developed, and further away, Hakra sites came up. So, pre-Harappan phase was basically a regionalization era where regional cultures developed. However, the Mature Harappan phase is an integration era because Mature Harappan phase integrated the aspects of most of these cultures and it standardized the elements of these cultures. So in the Mature Harappan phase, we can see high degree of standardization in the material elements of its culture. What do we mean by standardization? For example, standardization of pottery, which means that now all the cities were more or less developing the same kind of pottery. Standardization of weights and measures, which means that the weights and measures used in all the Harappan cities were now same. Moreover, the bricks used were also same. The bricks had standard dimensions in all the Harappan cities. Similarly, town planning was also more or less the same in all the Harappan cities. Not only in the cities, many of the smaller settlements also had similar kind of town planning. So that is what we mean when we say that mature Harappan phase has a high degree of standardization, and it is basically an integration era of Harappan civilization. During the mature Harappan phase, great cities emerged. For example, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Chandhu-daro and Kalibangan are some of the great cities that emerged during mature Harappan culture. These three are basically located in Pakistan, and Kalibangan is located in Rajasthan. Therefore, it is in India. All these cities were properly planned cities, and the construction in these cities were mainly done using burnt bricks. Mature Harappan people also practiced agriculture on a wide scale. Because of this, only some people did agriculture. The remaining people were involved in other occupations. For example, some people were potters, some were coppersmiths and bronzesmiths, some people made bricks, and so on. And farmers in mature Harappan culture grew different kind of crops. For example, they not only grew wheat and barley, but now they grew sesame, cotton, mustard, and many other crops. Mature Harappan people also conducted both internal trade as well as external trade. Internal trade was mainly between different cities of mature Harappan culture, and external trade was with Mesopotamia, Afghanistan, Iran, Oman, Bahrain, and all these regions. Now let's talk about some of the features of Harappan culture, meaning mature Harappan culture. The first feature is town planning. And within the town planning, let's talk about city planning first. Typically, Harappan city had two parts. The first part was called as citadel, and the second part was called as lower town. Please remember that all cities did not follow this pattern. For example, I can cite you Dholavira. Dholavira is a Harappan site which is located in Gujarat. In Dholavira, the city has been divided into three parts. So these kind of exceptions we will learn in detail when we talk particularly about Dholavira site. So typically, Harappan city had two parts, citadel and lower town. Citadel was usually located towards west, and it was built on a higher platform. This platform was mainly made of mud bricks. So if we have east this side and west this side, here citadel was built on a higher platform. So this area is nothing but citadel. The lower town was located towards the east, and it was lower than the citadel. So this is nothing but the lower town. Moreover, the lower town was larger than the citadel in terms of area. So you can see here the lower town is larger in area compared to citadel. So citadel was towards west, it was built on a higher platform, and it was smaller. On the other hand, lower town was built towards east, it was built on a lower platform or no platform, and it was larger in area. So I hope you understood this. Both the citadel as well as lower town, they were surrounded by separate boundary walls. So lower town had a boundary wall as well as the citadel had another boundary wall. Sometimes not only boundary walls but fortifications were also made. And these boundary walls and fortifications were usually made using baked bricks. What was the purpose of citadel? Citadel mainly contained special buildings of the city. For example, it had warehouses or granaries. It had special buildings like the Great Bath in Mohenjo-daro. It also had buildings for rulers. The streets in Harappan cities were made on a grid-like pattern, and the main roads ran north to south and east to west. For example, this is a main road which ran north to south. This is north, this is south. And another main road ran like this, east and west. This is nothing but a grid-like pattern. Smaller streets connected the houses with these main roads on either side. For example, there are houses here, and these houses were connected to the main road using smaller streets. So we had main roads and we also had smaller streets like this. Harappan cities had elaborate drainage system, which in some books it is given as sewage system. So in this drainage system, the drains ran parallel to the roads. For example, this is a road and drains were located at the side of the roads here and here like this. These drains were lined with mortar, limestone and gypsum. Why is lining needed? Because by lining we make it waterproof. So we must appreciate the engineering of mature Harappan people. These drains were covered with rectangular slabs made of bricks. Moreover, these drains were built such that they had gentle slopes. So because of these gentle slopes, whatever sewage or drainage is coming into the drains, it was able to flow easily. For example, if we are going to build a drain in a straight line, and if we are going to release water here, this water won't be able to flow easily towards the other end of the drain. But if we build this drain on a slope like this, then whatever water is being released here, it would be able to flow easily. So this engineering was also done in mature Harappan culture drains. And inspection holes were also provided at regular intervals so that whenever needed, the maintenance can be done. And all these small houses were connected to the main drains on the main roads using the smaller drains which were there on the streets. So smaller drains basically connected the drain water from the houses, for example from their bathrooms, to the bigger drains on the streets. And these bigger drains on the streets ultimately flow into the main drains which is located on the main road. Now let's talk about another aspect of town planning, which is nothing but the house building. Harappans planned their cities well before building them. You can see it here. Initially, they built streets and drains. Only once the streets and drains were properly built, then they built houses. So this is an interesting aspect of planned city construction of Harappans. And most of the construction was mainly built using standard sized baked bricks. The ratio of dimensions of the bricks was like this: 4:2:1. If we talk about length is to breadth is to height. Moreover, the dimensions of the bricks were also fixed. I will give you an example. This is not important from the point of view of exam. There were two sizes of bricks which were available in Harappan culture. One was 40 by 20 by 10 centimeter and the other was 28 by 14 by 7 centimeter. So both these sizes basically corresponds to this ratio. These bricks were basically laid in an interlocking pattern so that they can get maximum strength out of these bricks. What do we mean by interlocking pattern? This is nothing but interlocking pattern. And this kind of interlocking pattern actually gives maximum strength to the wall. And this is a scientific fact. And Harappan people used interlocking pattern for greater strength of walls and their constructions. The houses were usually one-storied or two-storied with stairs. The Harappan houses had many rooms, and these rooms were basically built around a central courtyard. So there was a central courtyard like this, and around this they had rooms. So this was how their houses were built. So this is a courtyard and all these are rooms around the courtyard. Mohenjo-daro, Harappa and Lothal had elaborate stone houses. All the houses in Harappan culture had bathrooms, and these bathrooms had drains that connected them to the drains on the main street. So again, you can observe the hygiene aspect of mature Harappan people. In Harappan cities, many houses also had their own wells. Let's look at some of the other features of town planning. In Harappan cities, there were also special buildings. For example, granaries for storing grain, great bath probably for ritual baths, and other buildings. These buildings were mainly built on the citadel area. Harappan cities also had lamp posts at regular intervals. So from this, we may infer that aspects of safety and security were also important in the Harappan society. Burnt bricks were the most common type of bricks used in Harappan culture. Other than burnt bricks, baked bricks as well as sun-dried bricks were also used. Harappan people did large-scale constructions. For example, reservoirs and canals, dockyards were built. For building these, Harappan cities mobilized huge amounts of manual labor as well as resources like stone or bricks and all these. Privacy was also important for Harappan people. I can give you two examples here. The first example is that Harappan houses did not have windows on the ground floor. Moreover, the main entrance to the house was actually from the side. For example, if this is a road and this is the Harappan household, then the entrance was from here. It was not from here. This basically shows the importance of privacy to Harappan people. If we talk about the type of houses that were built in Harappan culture, there were mainly three types of houses, or we can say houses of three sizes were there. Bigger houses were there for rulers, which were mainly built on the citadel area. Bigger houses in lower town were built for rich merchants. Poor laborers also lived in lower town, but they had smaller houses. So mainly rulers lived on citadel, whereas rich merchants and poor laborers lived in the lower town. But rich merchants had larger houses compared to the poor laborers. So this is all you need to know about town planning in mature Harappan culture. If you like this video, please subscribe. You can download this presentation from our Telegram channel. The name of the channel is IAS Project. You can find the link for this channel in the description section below. Thank you.